Purpose is your one thing. That is the singular statement that most of the clients who come for coaching in the half a decade that I have been a Kingdom Life Coach come to me with. They are confused. They are wondering. They cannot understand what the one thing is or what their one thing is. Because typically, we all fall into three different categories. Number one, there will be this category of people who don't even seem to see their gifts. They don't seem to see their abilities. They don't seem to see any greatness in them. And therefore, when you ask them their one thing, they cannot be able to locate it. The second category of people are people who are multi-talented. They are multi-gifted. Therefore, when you try to box them into the one thing, it becomes difficult for them to be able to place it. And then there's a third category of people who, when they think about their life journey, it seems to meander. And because of the meandering into different abilities, into different seasons, they cannot be able to see their one thing. What then is purpose? My name is Coach Judy Mzungu Jabali. I am a Kingdom Life Coach and the founder of the Realignment Solution. And for the few minutes that we have together, I want us to debunk purpose. Purpose is the beautiful convergence of everything that is within you. The gifts, the abilities, the skills, I dare say, even the tough seasons of your life, because God uses every part of His story, of your story, for His glory. Purpose is unveiled per time. In every season of your life, you will be fulfilling purpose to the degree that you can use everything that God has deposited in you until that time. So that we can be able to understand better the whole issue of purpose, I want us to consider the story of Joseph. And when you think about the story of Joseph, you will realize that one of the things that actually lent him what he became in future was his heritage, his lineage. Just the fact that Joseph was a Jew, and just the fact that there was a prophetic word that had been spoken to Abraham concerning the descendants being enslaved in a foreign land already tells you that Joseph was living his purpose even in the difficult seasons of his life. The fact that he was a lineage says something. Too many times when we're thinking about our lineage, we're thinking about family trauma, we're thinking about childhood trauma, we're thinking about generational curses, but how about, for a change, we think about generational blessing? I, for example, would not be doing what I'm doing today had I not been raised by a man who was a journalist. Everything that I do, my writing, my gifting, comes as a result of the man who raised me, Tom Mzungu. Now, I know I'm speaking to a generation who sometimes does not even understand who their father is. I want us to use the example of Jesus. Blind Bartimaeus, when he called out Jesus, he said, Son of David. Jesus was only called Son of David by the reason of the fact that he was raised by Joseph. Furthermore, Joseph was a carpenter. The Bible says that actually, Jesus became a carpenter. Where did Jesus learn his trade? He learned his trade because he was raised by a carpenter. What is your lineage? Who raised you? If you can be able to understand that and look at your environment, that already begins to tell you what it is that has been deposited in you. The second thing, Joseph. When you think about Joseph, you will realize that he was a dreamer. And when you go back and study Jacob, you will realize that at Bethel, Jacob was able to see angels ascending and descending when he lay down to rest. It means that the capacity for Joseph to dream had actually been inherited from his father. Think about it. He was a dreamer. But secondly, a very interesting perspective was given to me just this past weekend. Actually, Ted Josiah, he talked about the coat of many colors being the different gifts, skills, and abilities that Joseph had. His father had seen it. What skills, what abilities can you already begin to trace from your childhood? What is it about you that stood out? For some of you, it was leadership. For some of you, you were creative. For some of you, you had high IQ. For some of you, you had high imagination. What was it in you as you think about your gifts and abilities? And then thirdly, the difficult experiences of your life. Yes, the pit experience. If Joseph had not landed in the pit, he would not have found his way to Egypt and fulfilled that prophetic word. That goes to say that no experience, even the difficult experience of your life, goes to waste. What difficult experience did you go through? If I had not gone through the difficult experience of rejection as an example, of finding myself late as an example, maybe I would not be doing what I am doing today. What has been your pit experience? Then the other thing that you will look at as you try to debunk purpose is what are your learned skills and abilities. When Joseph landed in Potiphar's house, you can see administrative skills being included in his curriculum vitae. If you think about the totality of your life, if you think about your life journey, what environment have you been in, and what skill, what ability did it add onto who you are? And then Joseph finds himself in the prison. And we begin to see something very interesting about Joseph, that when he landed in prison, something within him was able to notice the chief baker and the cupbearer. Remember that Joseph had already encountered Potiphar, who was a governor in the time. So you can see that Joseph was drawn to royalty. Who are you drawn to? When you look at your life journey, who is it that appeals to you, or who is it that somehow begins to discover you or calls you out? Who are you inclined to? Who are you drawn to? Who inspires you? Talking about purpose. And then you see that in the prison, Joseph again became a leader. He was chosen. So you can already see leadership following him almost throughout his life. But something more important happens in the prison. That Joseph now moves or transforms or morphs from being just a dreamer to becoming a dream interpreter. And that tells you something, that gift that is in you should not necessarily be expressed in its original form. It can grow. It can grow into another dimension. It can become something else. Sometimes you are drawing, maybe just using your hands, and then you morph. You transform into a graphic designer. Same gift, expression is different. Sometimes that same gift morphs, and maybe you become, a DJ because you have an ear. Maybe you become a producer because there's an ear. Maybe you move and you become a marketer. Why is that important? Because your creativity then is being used. Maybe you become a salesperson. You will sell differently because you have creativity in you and it is morphing, taking different shape, but it is still being used. Maybe you are athletic. And that athleticism actually points to the fact that you're a creative. How then can you be able to use that gift in this particular season of your life? How can it find expression? It doesn't die. It just changes expression. And then finally, Joseph ends up before Pharaoh. At that place, he not only is a dream interpreter, because remember, he was only asked one thing: give me the interpretation of the dream. But Joseph went on to give strategy. Why? Because he was able to tap into wisdom that comes from the presence of God. He was able to tap into understanding, and then by that create opportunity and then develop strategy. That, in a nutshell, is how you can be able to trace your purpose. In the next week, we are going to be looking at what are the hindrances, or what is the blockage to the path of purpose. Subscribe to this channel. More is coming. It's a great honor and a great privilege to do this. Let's keep doing this as we grow, as we find our identity, as we find purpose and become everything that God desires for us to be. See you next time.